again, we'll start with the basics on this. And so probably will be by segments because this is a long conversation to have. And I want it to be informal. I don't want to be this professor, which I am, but I don't want it to be too heady that people, I will lose them. And I don't want it to be too simple that people not going to get the depthness of this conversation. And so I wanted to begin um, to explore this topic with some, and you know what, guys, and I'll talk about it real like this. A lot of guys are not spiritually sensitive or emotionally sensitive like ladies and women are. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about how culture has placed things in our minds, psychologically speaking, where the only emotion that guys can express is anger, right? uh, but any other emotion is like a weakness. And so in the dialogue between male and female, sometimes the male said when sees ladies expressing more emotions that there's something wrong with them. And so all that stuff is really not helpful that the culture in itself has cultivated and make it as a norm, which is not true, you know. And so we're gonna be talking a little bit about that, but I want to concentrate of the sensitivity that I have personally learned about. eh, Might it be emotionally, it might be spiritually, but I have two great people to thank for my teaching. Okay, it hasn't been in my first, second master's or PhD work. No, my initial learning, if I can articulate it that way, has been from my mom. My mom is a very intuitive, right? And so we're going to start with the intuition, a woman's intuition, right? And because I think that's the language that we learn is how to be. And in the circles that I grew up, we used to address intuition or that sensitivity. Could it be emotionally or could it be spiritually? The we used to have sort of that this slogan that used to say, I know that I know that I know that I know. Okay. When you had a we can say a premonition, you knew something of somebody or an event, but you couldn't logically explain it, right? You couldn't logically explain it what it was, but it was inside your gut feeling. It was just inside of you, and when it happened, you kind of like, whoa, you know. If you're spiritual, say glory to God, or what's going on here, you know. A little bit skeptical about that. So my mom is being a spiritual person since I was a little kid, and so she's always prayed. She's always was in tune and trying to get in tune with God. And so my spiritual sensitivity comes from her side, and I'm glad for that. Then when I was in high school, um, I befriend someone that was Christian, and his mom adopted other friends of us like hers, not unofficially, and she also was very spiritual, very emotionally sensitive, very spiritually sensitive. And I'm using those two terms because we're going to talk about those later on. And so that's how it opened up, if I can call it this way, open up myself to be more spiritually in tune with a higher power, with God, you know, with that sensitivity. Now, I also have met other people who are highly intellectual, highly skeptical, and so that's why I keep asking the question: what constitutes a human being? There are some people that cultivate, and I'm one of them also, on education and cultivate the cerebral work, the logical, the analytical part of it. But that's only one part. What about your emotions? And what about your spirit? And how do you cultivate each one of them? And that's very difficult because if you stay only in your brain, you're never gonna go down. And it's very difficult to go down into your spirit, to your soul, into your heart. Okay, and that's why I wrote this book, because I'm an analytical, very skeptical person. At the same time, I had this intuition, these things going on in my life that I said, I gotta make sense out of this thing. And so that's why the book was written, not so much for other people, although other people can learn about my experiences, that other experiences are similar, but there are some things that we can learn from each other. Okay, and so I wrote it for me, because I was like, okay, how can I balance my brain with my heart? Okay, and and so throughout my years in studying and working as a clergy, I met different kinds of people from different walks of life, from different intellectual capacity to emotional sensitivity, and sometimes they go from one side of the pendulum to the other one, from one extreme to the other extreme, and it's very hard to keep it centered, to keep it a balance between what is in your head and what is in your spirit, what is in your soul, what is in your emotions. And so this is something that we need to continue to ask the question, what constitutes a human being? Some intellectuals would say only your brain, the analytical, the logical. Some would say it's about your heart, your passions. And so we see now, today we're going to look at it as a cohesive unit. We're not fragmented. We are, like the Greek word that I like to use is teleos. We are complete. We are holistic. We are whole. Okay. However, sometimes we become fragmented because we only develop certain parts of our humanity, or our experience as a human beings, and that's why we get extremes, and that's why we get this balance with all those things. And so that's why you see some people that are more emotional. That's why you see some other people that are more analytical and thinking, and we have different personalities on that. And that's why it makes it really difficult to talk about those things, because I can go with the analytical person, but also can go with the emotional person. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to even figure out for yourself. Trust me, because I've done it. That's I've been in school for so long, shamefully, or however you look at it, blessed with that. So, so going back to this intuition, the thing, as you begin to look at it from a worldview of Christianity, or and I'll concentrate on the Christian part later on. But as you begin to talk about intuition, then different religions talk about it. Different mysticisms and mystics, they talk about it differently. You probably have come around some terms some people use. For example, when we're talking about utilizing your spirit, some people talk about the third eye, right? There's a lot of literature that talks about the third eye, talking about how to develop your spirit. Some people talk about it as a white magic, black magic, powwow. I was just watching a documentary in Pennsylvania about what's powwow in its connection with witchcraft. Some other people use different terminology to talk about your spirit. Okay, and so, for example, in the Mayan tradition, they're talking about a shaman. In the Native American tradition, also talk about a spiritual man, a shaman. In other religions, in Mongolia, you see a lot of people talking about the power, not only about your spirit, but all the powers that they are there. Okay. Now, sometimes that gets mixed between your spirituality and your emotions. And so